Hey guys, welcome back to Black, White, and the Grays. My name is Kylie and I am the farmer here on our small farm located in Central Oregon. We are a zone 3, 4 with a frost risk all year round. So the plants I'm going to talk about today are going to be actually extremely hardy, and I've grown them the last 5 to 6 years. And keep in mind, this is a very small, minimal list, and I plan on expanding it to this year and every year for that matter, and just kind of figuring out what works best for us. Now, the things I'm going to talk to you about are mainly perennials because I prefer perennials in my landscape. It's less work, but also some are annuals because they have proven themselves worthy. I will try and specify throughout the video what is a perennial, which ones are perennials and which ones are annuals as we go on. So the first one I'm going to talk about is definitely a perennial, and it's one of my favorites, and it goes back to when I was a child. My mom had these in I think almost every single garden that we ever had, and they just bring back such fond memories. And those are lilacs. I have 6 plants planted. No, I have about 9 plants planted all around the property. I have 2 or 3 in our small garden and 6 up by the house, and they are probably one of my favorites. They are growing great here for me. I have had some issues with shade from where they're planted. I have one in front of my kitchen window, but that is where we also have one of our big shade trees, and this is just a lot of learning. So I think I have 2 over there actually, and I'm gonna move the smaller one and move it out to a more sunny spot and hopefully get a bloom in the next year. I'm not expecting blooms off it this year, hopefully the following year. And the other one is this beautiful lush green bush every single year, but I have yet to get a bloom off it either, and like I said, it's in a shady area, but they love full sun. So we need to move those to a more sunny location this year. Not expect any blooms, but Lord willing, we'll get some beautiful blooms next year. So for my second one, it's also a perennial, and this is also doubles as a cut flower for us, and we plan on putting a crap ton in this fall, and those are peonies. Peonies are deer resistant, they're frost hardy. You get these big, beautiful, show-stopping blooms, and they grow here. So I have 5 planted around my house, and then another 20 to 24-ish planted down a walk pathway, which they were so tiny. I planted them from, I don't know what you call them, bulbs or corms or sets, I don't know. But we planted them and they weren't expected to get very big. I don't know how many are coming back this year. I hope a lot, but we'll have to see. Depends on if they got enough water last year, if they survived the winter, if nobody dug it up or like voles got it or moles or whatever sucks them down. We're having a big underground varmint problem with all of my perennials. So we're gonna get that worked out this year, Lord willing. But this fall we're gonna plant a huge row and invest in quite a bit of peonies this year because they are one of my favorite flowers. They might be top 2. They're so gorgeous. Like I said, they're perennial and deer don't like them. We have a major deer population around this area, so having something that's deer resistant is key if you don't have a fenced in area. I have a whole video about them already this year, and they're poppies. I have some ornamental poppies that were actually here at the house when we purchased our home in 2015. We bought a foreclosure and we had to do a lot of work on it, but this big beautiful orange, it's probably like this big ornamental poppy was here, and it comes back every single year. It just keeps coming back. I love that poppy so much. I saved seeds from it this year to hopefully get some more poppies around the area, and yeah, hopefully we get a ton more poppies. And I would love to we have this aisleway that hopefully if the wind calms down and if it's not drizzling, I can just show you, and you're gonna see it. We're gonna be doing lots of planting and stuff up there this year, but it's on our sides of our porch up right by our house, and there's 2 flower beds on both sides as you're walking up to the house. And there I'd really love to fill with, I have 4 peonies up there, maybe 5 peonies up there, and my lilacs and some yarrow and hostas, which I'll get to those in a second. But so I kind of want to fill that area up with some beautiful poppies since we already have some growing, and just kind of have a perennial or annuals that love to self-seed up there that they just keep coming back year after year. That way it's less maintenance, because when you have a whole farm and a few gardens and a greenhouse and lots of things you're maintaining, sometimes the landscape around your house goes to the bottom of the list. And I don't want that to happen. I want it to be a wonderful representation of our farm and the life that we have here, and I want to enjoy it myself. I want to keep my house looking beautiful as well and well landscaped, even if it is a little wild. Well, this is a huge one. This is probably the first plant I ever planted on our farm, and it's catmint. So catmint is this, they have a few different varieties, and one of my favorites, I hope I can find a picture of it. I believe it's an Asian variety, but it is hardy, and it gets, if you look back on any of my summer videos for our small garden, the catmint has these big purple flowers that come to about here, and they're huge, they're beautiful. That plant bit the big one last year. This is just a sore subject still because it was a few years old, so it's quite mature and just gorgeous. Maybe they didn't get it all, but some moles came and sucked it down a mole hole. I was so pissed off. But hopefully, like I said, it comes back. My sister has the mother plant that I get all of mine from, and hers got pretty ate by moles last year as well. We just had a bad mole problem. But hopefully hers survived. I know hers came back a lot last year, and hopefully I can get a few more starts to put around. And then I have a few up in front of our house that I also maybe could separate and get more. But it is one of my favorite because it's hardy, it's drought tolerant, and it's deer resistant. All of my favorite qualities in a perennial plant. Then there's the smaller varieties too. I do have several of those planted around out and about. I have seeds that I planted in our small garden 3 years ago, and I noticed they didn't show up very much the first year, but last year they really started popping up everywhere, which is perfect, fine by me. I love them. They're small, they're great, and it's the same qualities for the smaller version as it is for the larger version. You just don't get as big as plant, but it still gets pretty big and it's gorgeous. For a shade loving plant, I invested in a few hostas, maybe not too many, like three hostas, 3 or 4. I know one bit the big one, so we might only have 2 or 3 left, and they're under our shade tree also in that walk area, and they were beautiful last year, and I hope they just get bigger and bigger each year, and I'll probably get a couple more just because that is a shady area. I did buy some shade wildflowers to plant in there just to fill it up, because a lot of the budget this year is going into the farm, needless to say. So I thought a cheap couple dollar shade wildflower thing would be beautiful up there as well. A big investment that I just put an order in for the farm is daffodils. Now these are going, we have a bunch of daffodils all around the house already. They were here when we moved in, like the poppies, the ornamental poppies, but these ones I'm purchasing are for the cut flower farm, and they will be perennials. So it's kind of like you fork out the dough once and they keep growing, and about every 5 years you got to dig them up and separate them because they will crowd each other out, and then you won't get any blooms. But to me, that's a good thing. Like every 4 to 5 years you got to dig them up so you get more. Heck yeah, I'm all about that. So daffodils we are going to be seriously investing in this year, and hopefully as well tulips. Now daffodils I love, frost resistant. Basically I don't have to water them. They just get all the spring snow and rain and they grow just fine. Tulips are not deer resistant, and they have to be within a closed fence. So we'll see what we'll decide later in the year if we're gonna really, well, pretty soon we got to decide if we want to put our money with the tulips, and we got to just figure that out. But tulips are beautiful, and I have them spaced out in I have them in here. I don't know if any came up last year. I might have lost them all, but I do have some in our small garden and along the house too, but the deer have mowed them down almost every year. Be prepared for that. Okay, I have talked about this plant over and over again, and it is yarrow. It grows wild here, yes, and also we grow it for the cut flowers, and also we have it up in our landscape up by the house. We've gotten some different varieties. I believe we got an apricot one and a super bright red. I think we got a red one and an apricot one up by the house because they're kind of just special. The other varieties we grow in the cut flower garden, and I've talked about them a million times, but yarrow, perennial, loves everything. Deer don't like it. Definitely a win. I think now that I'm talking about the poppies, this is like off topic, but because we were just talking about yarrow, but some of those cool poppies I listed in that video, I put it up in the info cards up here. I think I need to grow some of those alongside my house because I think those would be gorgeous, because I don't use them for cut flowers because they have a terrible vase life. But growing them up by the house to enjoy, not only in my small garden, but up by the house, I think I would really like that. So I need to do that. This next one is a lupin or lupine, however you've heard it pronounced. I pronounce it lupin. We have wild lupin growing everywhere. It's just these little beautiful little tiny purple flowers that comes up early spring. I love them. But you also can grow the perennial version that is for cut flowers, and I had one last year, or I have two in my big garden or my small garden. One got sucked down a molehill last year. We just had a lot of problems with them. But I bought a ton of seed, which comes in the mail tomorrow, hopefully, and I'm going to be starting my own. So I'm not expecting any flowers this year. If I get some, that's awesome. If I don't, that's okay too. But it's just putting in the investment, and this will be a perennial that I can just keep out in the beds and not have to just keep it maintained and not have to replant it every single year. So lupin, I love. It's beautiful in the landscape and as well as a cut flower. So a lot of these, I've seen this new trend, which I think is really awesome. It's not necessarily what I'm going for, because my landscape, I like to have my flowers there in bloom. And a cut flower garden, if you have a ton of stuff in bloom, you're missing something. You're not harvesting them fast enough. A cut flower garden, if you see floret, this is a perfect example. You see rows and rows of these beautiful in bloom flowers. That's awesome. It's because they grow for seed. And so everything has to go to bloom for them to save their seed. But a normal cut flower garden, you're not going to get to see that. Anything that's right about to bloom, it's cut. So that's a difference. And I want to be able to see some of these flowers in full bloom around my landscape. And so that's why I'm going to be growing the lupin and everything around my house as well, so then I can enjoy it in full bloom and not have to cut it. Another thing I like to use around the landscape, and it's also, this can be very invasive, and I'm in our area, when anybody says that, I'm like, bring it on, because if it's invasive, we'll have a chance of it coming back every year. But these things actually are invasive, even in our climate where it's extreme, and it's bachelor buttons. They're so cute, they're adorable, they are like a weed. It's killed me my first year. It was like, they got so big and so much that they were like heavy, weighing down all the things in front of them, and they were just falling down into the walkways. And I didn't have the heart to pull them out till my sister came in and was like, your garden is going to be so much more beautiful if you just take some of these out. So we did. We ended up ripping them out. And that's kind of what you have to do with these, because they self-seed throughout the whole entire season. And they go to seed pretty quickly. They are hard to cut. They're great cut flower. They do great. We grow them here for cut flowers, but they're a filler. They're tiny, and it takes a lot to harvest them. It takes a while. So it's kind of like I'm not a patient person, so I just go hacking. And then afterward, I just go through and sort my stems like that. But with bachelor buttons, they just love life. So they're going to come back year after year. Everywhere you go with them, they're going to be a great annual, even though they come back every year. So they're an annual that self-seeds a ton, it's like a poppy. Once you plant them, they keep popping up everywhere, and they keep popping up everywhere. And it's the same with bachelor buttons. They keep coming back even though they're an annual. And the last one was, this was a few years in the making. I planted them a couple years ago, and last year I got my full blooms again. I'll link a garden tour of our small garden so you can see these guys. They're gorgeous. Are hollyhocks. Now, I don't think I've ever looked up what they are for cut flowers. I have never seen them in an arrangement, so I'm assuming they're not great. But they bring me so much joy. They get pretty tall. Mine in my little garden are these bright red varieties. I have a ton more varieties. I have an apricot. I have a really dark black one that looks cool. And then I have a few mixes that I got. And I'm also going to be getting those in the ground this year. Probably not expecting blooms this year, but hopefully next year we'll just have a ton of hollyhocks. And those will be in the landscape as well as in our small garden. And who knows, maybe in the big garden as well. They brought me so much joy last year. So the hollyhocks are a must grow for me. I think they're gorgeous, and I think they're beautiful. And all these flowers, like I said, are as hardy as all get out. So plant your life away if you're in a cooler climate. If you're in a warmer climate, you'll have to I am not familiar with growing these in like a zone 8, 9, or 10. I have no idea, or up. But I know all these varieties would do fine in like a zone 6, 7. They definitely a 5. They're going to be great in those zones. And like I said, we're going to be trying out a few new varieties for us and a few different things, and beefing up our perennials this year. And also mainly our perennials for our cut flower garden, but I know that I can siphon a few here and there. And you know, Trey, my husband, the director of landscaping, he'll probably snatch a few for his own personal gardens around the house. He started taking care of the lawn last year and it never looked better, and he's now starting to do the flower beds around the house and get that all sorted, which is a load off my plate because last year I just couldn't handle maintaining gardens, greenhouse, and the landscape. So him stepping up and doing that and naming himself director of landscaping, it's pretty helpful for me in my book. So there you have it. I hope this was helpful. If you are, let me know what your favorite perennial or annual varieties to use in your landscape are. I don't know if I finished my thought earlier, but it was people are using the cut flowers in their landscape and they're cutting them, and I think that's a really cool trend, especially if you're in an urban environment where you don't have a lot of space but you want to earn a little extra cash off your land. Why not? I think that's awesome. For me, around my house, I want it to be in full bloom, and we have the space. We're a little less than 5 acres here, but we do have that in cow pasture. So some of the acreage we have a family dairy cow, so with a steer and a few goats, and they have a few acres of pasture, and then we have a few acres around the house for the market gardens and stuff. So I don't really want to do cut flowers in the landscape. I think it's an awesome option if that's all the space you have, or if that's just kind of the look you want to go for. Feel free to do whatever the heck you want. I saw a gal who, maybe I can find the video, she's so sweet, and she lives on the East Coast, but she posted this video, and she is in an urban environment, and she wanted to pay her taxes. I think it was like $5 grand a year, and how she did it is planting cut flowers in her landscape, and she does it every single year, and I think that's really cool because why not be resourceful. She also has some flowers that she lets go to bloom in her landscape, so you get both vibes of beauty and usage. I don't know, both of those, profit and for beauty. So she has it both going on. I'll see if I can find that video again, and I'll link it below. But thanks for following along with us today, guys. Thanks. Be sure to subscribe if you are so inclined, and give this video a thumbs up, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, guys.